Welcome to Local SEO Tactics, where we bring you tips and tricks to get found online. I am producer Caleb Baumgartner, here today to bring you our landmark 100th episode of the show. On this special episode, we help our listeners get to know our team a bit better with an interview with resident rock star, client success specialist Sue Ginsburg. This episode is packed with insights and perspectives you won't want to miss. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. Welcome back to Local SEO Tactics, where we bring you tips and tricks to get found online. And I'm your host, Jesse Dolan, joined with Mr. Bob Brennan.
Howdy.
And our special guest should be familiar to everybody at this point, but Sue Ginsburg is joining us here.
Hi.
And this is not, for those of you that have been tuning in for a while, this is not going to be like a question and answer or a listener or a client question, which is kind of the usual format when Sue's joining us to get into that customer mode and voice of customer. But we're going to actually be interviewing Sue, and we got some stories to kind of fill before we get to that part where we actually ask Sue a few questions and get to learn more about her. The big kind of overarching concept for this episode here is Bob, our 100th podcast episode, which is kind of a pretty big milestone. We've been doing this for, pulling up the stats here. When was the first one? I should have had this ready ahead of time, of course, but all right, let's play a game. Any guesses? Who can guess when we launched our first episode?
God, it would have been about this time of the year. It would have been in the spring. I guess my guess would be March of, it wasn't in the fall. God, stinks getting old. I'd say 3 years ago.
January 31st, 2018. So wow. Pretty close.
Not even close. Thanks, Jess.
Within quarters. No, I think that's pretty dang impressive. So I know we've gone through some ebbs and some flows for the frequency, and we had a stretch there with the business where we didn't have any new episodes for quite some time. And I think one of the coolest things along this journey of, the past few years and 100 episodes is when we did re-release and really got back into the swing of things again after having a period of downtime. Some of the users that reach out to us, like, so glad to hear you guys' voices again and putting out content. And it's like, what? Okay. I guess people really are paying attention and finding value in this, which a lot of the feedback I know that we get through reviews or even talking with listeners that ultimately turn into clients, as they say, we've always loved the attitude about just straight to the point advice and helpful stuff, and not a lot of self-promotion or sideways agendas with sponsors and other stuff. It's just helping people out, right? So to know, and that's always been our point, we really took a big page out of Pat Flynn's playbook. It was a huge inspiration for us, and really, Bob, the catalyst. You started this as the initiative, to be clear for everybody. Like, hey, we've got to throw a podcast out there. We've got to start helping people more and getting information out. We'd both been listening to Pat Flynn at the time, and he came out with his Power Up Podcasting course, which was really the template on how to launch this thing. And I think it took us like a year to actually even launch it to begin with. But his whole MO, if nobody's familiar with him that's listening, is help, right? Just help, just put stuff out there. And karma's going to bring it back to you, really, at the end of the day, for lack of a better way to phrase it. And I think for me, that became tangible when we did have that re-release or re-engagement after a period of downtime, that people were reaching out, just kind of giving thanks and leaving more reviews and kind of like, we're happy you're back. What do you want me to do to give you praise? And that was super cool. Throughout the way, I just want to touch on a few highlights. We've interviewed some pretty awesome people. We're talking about Sue. We're going to be interviewing you here in a little bit with some questions and whatnot, but we've been able to talk to some pretty cool people. We had, looking here, episode 70, Kyle Roof of High Voltage SEO / Page Optimizer Pro / SEO Fight Club / SEO Guru. That was awesome. I don't think we would have been able to talk to him in that way otherwise. We've had Terry Samuels on now for a number of interviews. And going to do more with him, schema expert extraordinaire. We had one of the earlier interviews here, Joe Anderson, who was one of our partners in Crime Ad Intrix, even still today. was on talking about plugins and WordPress stuff, multi-part episode there, an interview. Who else? We had this, we're talking about the dark web with Scott Hudgens and Michael Takala. Interviewed Bob, which was a great one early on. That might have been the first, if I remember right, the first actual interview.
Gosh. TMZ is still at my house over that one.
You know, some things really just catapult the career, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
Nathan Hirsch from freeup.com, which we still use to this day for some freelancer / VA help. Matt Addington, neighbor / friend / photographer extraordinaire there as well, helping people. How do you take your own pictures and kind of using pictures and visual through your website? So yeah, there's some other ones here, but in addition to just doing like our tips and tricks type stuff, being able to interview people and have them share their stories and things like that, I think has been one of the other cool parts about the podcast. I'll flip it to you, Bob, in a second. I didn't tell you this, but I don't know if you have anything that you think has kind of been born out of it or some revelations.
No, I think, you know, if I could give advice to people who are considering doing a podcast, I'd say go ahead and do it. And I know a lot of people are doing podcasts today, but what, you know, if you look at the history of our podcast, it had fits and starts and everything else. But then once we got going, we really got to settle in and hear the voice of the customer through the questions they were asking or comments they were making, and not really quite sure what to do with that. And that's where, you know, really, you know, Sue came in. She was one of our listeners and got our attention, and we huddled with her, and it, you know, it's been nothing but great things as far as going upwards in terms of that's what she does. She understands. She actually listens to people as opposed to us males that are too busy, you know, scratching ourselves or whatever the deal is. So, and to that end, I mean, I just can't speak enough to what Sue has done to our family in terms of, you know, completing this. So, I'm excited to get on with our interview and talk with her about listening to some of her stories and some of her experiences.
Well, let's set the stage on that, because I think for me, again, with the 100th episode here, that is a pretty cool arc. You know, we were, you know, scrapping and figuring out how to launch a podcast, how to do it, how to, quite frankly, take that step to put yourself out there, and then we did it, and then, you know, I think it was probably a year and a half later, Sue had reached out, right? Sue, we had a few conversations, but basically, and maybe you can expand on it, Sue, you started listening to the podcast to learn more about SEO. We'll talk a little bit more about your marketing chops and where you came from and how you got to that point. But basically, you came to us as a listener of the show, started engaging, and we, you know, quickly discovered that there's a bigger synergy here than just learning about SEO and things like that, and that we needed to team up, right, and do some stuff. So I don't know if you can remember, and I'm probably putting you on the spot, but maybe just start off with, you know, why did you start looking for SEO things, whether it be podcast or YouTube or just learning, and then what, you know, why this show? Why did you feel that there was a fit and compelled enough to actually reach out and be one of these people that doesn't just listen and consume, you know, but took that step to interact? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, my background is much broader than just online marketing. I've been doing marketing a lot of different ways for a lot of different types of business. And I am always interested in learning the latest and the greatest. And as online marketing has evolved, I've found different ways to keep up. And somebody had just shown me Google My Business sites, and I was just learning about that. And I'm an avid listener of podcasts to learn, and started looking up local SEO, Google My Business sites, local SEO, and listened to a couple different ones and came upon this one, and I really liked it. It was educational, but it wasn't dry and boring. Somehow or other, you made it interesting to me and also doable. And that was great. And then there was something that you said, so I was learning more and more, and I started to dabble in this. And in one episode, you said something about, we've been off air for a while now because after launching the podcast, we got so busy with clients wanting us to help them with SEO that we needed to take a break. And that's when I reached out to you and said, listen to your podcast. I'm learning this. A newbie to it, not nearly at your level. And I heard that you're overwhelmed and swamped with the business you're trying to take care of. Is there anything I can do to help?
Yeah.
And that's how it all started.
And that is how we kicked it off. And you are our client success specialist, which I think, we probably spend more energy than usual trying to come up with like the perfect title for that to really encapsulate it. But I think, those three words chosen specifically really do set the stage for all of our clients that engage with you. What you do, right? It in one sense it's broad, in the other sense I think it's kind of specific in that you're really all about the client. We have people on our team that are SEO experts, which is great, and maybe you can build a big organization doing that. But if you're not in tune with what the client wants and what they need and what their results are and how to translate all that, you're just not going to serve the clients in the best way. And I think that's where Bob and I have talked and feel fortunate that you've came to us through this awesome way, which I think is like super organic and just really fun. But then B, you brought that skill and that mindset and that empathy in a lot of ways for the clients that didn't exist within our organization previous. And over the last, year and a half or so, I think has really transformed us inside and out. On the outside, you've been on now as a regular segment within our podcast. We've added a second episode every week. We've been regularly producing, even before that, an episode a week consistently, which behind the scenes you were a big part of with content suggestions, format, and things like that. And then the introduction of that second episode featuring you. And then behind the scenes, at least from the podcast perspective, on working with clients, again, the people that reach out to us through this show that had similar sentiment as you, like, hey, I like what's being talked about here in the style. These are professionals that can help. I need help. And they reach out, and you just, wrap your arms around them, discover what they're looking for and kind of where can all this meet. And we've had some great success as a company, but then I think our clients have also been raving fans, quite frankly, which is awesome, right? We're all in this to make money. Of course, that's what we all do business for. But there's a real cool part of it when you're just helping people in growing their business and they're happy about it, and then you're getting paid to do it. I did, like I said, 100 episodes in, all this has really kind of come around and had a lot of benefits. And we're just thankful, speaking for you, Bob, too, that you are here as part of this. And this has just been a really cool journey. So let's dive into learning more about Sue and see if we can put you on the spot in a few things here and dig in. So we've talked before that you really have an expertise, in dealing with clients and parsing out, what's important for them, what they're looking for, whether that be in a product development sense, in a business development sense, voice of customer surveys, just for general research, things like that. My first question for you is, why does that drive you, right? Like, I like SEO. There's like a gamification to it. You're always learning and there's tangible things there. What drives you to be in this industry and then serving clients and having that be something you're passionate about?
Okay. I love helping businesses grow and seeing the potential and helping them put the Tetris pieces together so that the spaceship can go forth into space. Sure. And have always really, really enjoyed being a cheerleader and helping other businesses succeed. It has always really bothered me to see businesses wasting money on marketing tools that are not appropriate for them because they don't know the behind the scenes. And granted, there are a lot of different marketing tools out there, online, offline, every other thing, digital, non-digital. And even for people who are doing this every day, you need to keep learning, whether it's listening to podcasts or staying up on it and staying current with what's working, why it's working, or how it's working, and what will work best, and what will help it grow the most, get the best ROI of the marketing tools. Especially when the online world started becoming so much of a bigger part of the marketing mix pre-COVID, but we can say especially COVID. It's just so confusing to people who aren't doing it every day, and who I would have clients saying to me, hey, I was listening to the radio on the way in this morning and I heard a radio ad. I think we should do radio ads. I'm like, your client are children who don't even drive.
Right.
Why would you be doing radio ads? That does not make any sense. And I just have always wanted to help businesses find the best way to grow with the right tools and the best ROI, and not waste money on what I call random acts of marketing, which would be, hey, heard a really good radio ad. Let's do that for my business. Well, let's look at that from the standpoint of your customer. Do they listen to the radio? And it's just become the way that I filter everything I hear or see, and it's not the way that business owners think, nor should they think that way. And I like partnering with them and collaborating with them and helping them choose the tools that will work best. In today's day and age, online is such a big part of people's businesses. And I also, from working in the website world in the past, have always been shocked, disappointed, and reality check that businesses spend a lot of money on building a website, most likely their biggest marketing investment, at least at the time, and then they don't do anything with it. And trying to say to them, no, once you launch doesn't mean now you can check that off your list. It doesn't work that way. And do you realize the power that a website that's working for you has, and what it can do for you, and how it can be your best salesperson? And for the now, it's much more mainstream. I mean, hardly can be in business without having a website. And business owners are realizing that your website is and can be a powerful tool, yet they don't have the time, want to take the time. That's not the best use of their time to figure out how to do that. And I love being part of that service that can help them understand that and put a pathway in front of them that they only have to know what they need to know. And the rest of it is done by experts who do this day in and day out, so that their website and their online presence really, truly is impacting their business and growing it.
I can tell you too, I've seen a lot of that firsthand in sitting in with you on client meetings at various stages of consultation and onboarding processes. And some of this may sound a little negative to start with, but follow with me, everybody. It's not going to be, I just have to set the stage. So the first few times that we had done that, Bob, you weren't on some of these, but Sue would be asking some questions, and I'm just sitting there. I'll be on like on a Zoom call or something, and she's really prodding about, like broader topics. And like, I'm a problem solver. You can ask my wife. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's super annoying. Where like I hear something, I'm like, all right, let's just start talking about solutions. And it's like, no, I just wanted to vent. Like, please don't solve this. And so we'll be in these meetings, or even I should say more past tense. And I'm like just waiting to talk about like where SEO is going to solve this problem for you or something, right? And Sue's asking more of these broader prodding questions about where you're going to go, or like who's your client, who you're going after, and all this stuff. And I'm just thinking, oh man, she's really going to be, distracted. We're going to lose the focus here, whatever. And then all of a sudden it comes together, and she's like, okay, now that I have this context, like here's where I think, maybe this is the route you should go, or this order of things, whatever. And the clients are just like, oh wow, you got it. Like this all kind of makes sense now, and just it all comes together in a way that it wouldn't have if some of those questions about really what's the client's intent, like how are they trying to grow their business, what are their goals, what are they trying to serve, what makes them happy or successful, and things like that. And it's really taught me a lot, Sue. You've taught me a lot about how to engage with people in general, not just clients, and to listen and to try to parse those things out and bring it all together. And I'm sure that if some of our clients are still listening to the show here that this has happened with, they'll probably be sitting in their cars or on the treadmills, nodding their head like, yeah, that's, some of those questions were maybe a little bit challenging sometimes, or maybe even sometimes seem a little tangential. But that's how you peel away some of these layers to really understand, well, what's going to work for you? Because like what hasn't worked before, what's been your intent, and where do you want to go with this? And I know we've had conversations with some clients where they're like, well, yeah, I need a website and it needs to look good, whatever, but I don't get business online, so I'm not interested in maybe pursuing, let's say this particular SEO campaign or this directive. And you'll challenge them like, okay, that's cool. Well, just what if you were found suddenly at the top of Google? Like, what would it be like if people started calling you and asking if they could do business with you? Would you be able to take that business? And would that be a good thing for you? And they're like, oh yeah, for sure. It's like, well, your website can be used in this way, right? It can be your top salesperson, as you always say. And those challenging questions, I think, have been fun for me to hear. So like I said, slightly painful on the front side when I didn't grasp, this coming from the voice of customer angle. But it really truly does, I think, make for a better relationship between a vendor and a client, like we are to them. And then the results that we can then have. Because when we engage with a client, we try to be as turnkey as possible, like kind of like you're saying, like it's good to have these tools and everything else, but as a business owner or a marketing manager, I mean, sometimes they shouldn't be mired in those details. Let a professional or an expert do that and run with it. We can run with it on their behalf more when we really truly understand where they're going, to kind of use that metaphor and things like that. And for me, that's been a big takeaway, that I've got working with you. And I know, Bob, you haven't worked with Sue in that capacity as much in that exact role. So you really probably can't speak to that in that way as directly through those Zoom meetings and things like that. But yeah, I guess just looking back, that's been a fun journey with you, Sue, to kind of learn that stuff and see that. So I think it really does come from your heart and shows through with what you do.
Well,
And
I will say my kids will tell you that I could get a rock into a conversation with me, and sometimes I do. No, and I mean, it really is interesting to me to find out people's stories and then to hear the business story and understand what they want out of it. And I think Jesse, this morning, the client we talked to, as you well know, they have many products, but there's one that they want us to focus on. There's one that they want us to get found for, get more business on, get more clients on, and blow the roof off with that one. If you don't ask the questions, that question must have been asked long ago. We've been working with them for a long time. And sometimes it's also the exercise of having the business think about and answer the question, because as business owners, you're going so fast, you have this many things to do, and do this, do this, do this, and going through the exercise. Even our onboarding form, we have clients telling us, it took me a little time, but it was a great exercise in going back to thinking, what do I want my business to do?
Right.
Do I want it to grow, become a franchise, and become global, or do I want it to be the best in my hometown, or whatever it is they want?
Yep.
Whatever they want it to do is doable. The tools may or may not be the same. Yeah.
And that kind of insight is how you have success with a team or a third party like us, and get everybody on the same page. Because if you can't identify what success looks like, right, to distill it down to that, how are you going to know if it's working on either side of that fence? So
Sue, you've got a lot of Fortune 100 experience, and I've dealt with, I've been in business for over 20 years, and I've dealt with a lot of consultants that come in, and they used to work for, a major Fortune 100 company. They got let go, decided to start their own consultancy, but they couldn't translate. They couldn't make that transition, so to speak. And what I noticed about you is you were different in that, yes, you had that Fortune 100 experience, but you were able to take some of those best practices and bring it down to a small business level. And I was wondering if you could speak to that. I mean, how do you feel about that, or that skill set?
It's a great question. And I think it all comes down to you need to talk to your audience. And sure, I've been in lots of meetings where some 400-page document was presented, dropped on the table, whatever. And who has time to read that? And I just think what's going to move the needle on a need to know basis. Maybe I have pages and pages and pages of notes that got me to this a couple page document, but to the business owner, to the client, to them, they're on a need to know basis. And Jesse and I shared a marketing plan that was 1 page to a client earlier this year, and that was enough to be the trusted advisor that can take the best practices from the marketing sophisticated companies and distill it down into what's in it for me, for the client. That's what this is all about. I mean, voice of the customer, dealing with your audience, knowing who your audience is, and customizing the solution to that business, that client. That's what really gets me excited. I love doing that. I've been there, done all this, but that means you don't have to. Let me take that and learn about you, your issues, your challenges, your competitive advantages. And now I'll distill that all into a straightforward, here's what you need to know. This is what we need to do. Here's why. Where do you want to start? Right.
Yeah.
And that's really, I mean, that's the message I want to hear as a business owner. I want to hear, I mean, I know there's no silver bullet, but I know when somebody comes in and overcomplicates things, and it seems like all my life, that's what I've been dealing with, is people overcomplicating things. I mean, just a distinct plan that I can follow. And then more importantly, that I know they're like, these are the results we should be seeing on every step along the way, versus no, you need to do this for at least 6 months before you even begin to see results. And it's like, no, I don't have the money. I don't have the patience for that. And that's one thing I think you understand.
Right.
I also think that when I'm working with a business, I want to be a trusted advisor to them. I want to be a partner collaborating in their growth. And I want them to know that the most important thing to me is knowing what success means to them and helping them find that. That's much more important to me than them thinking I'm smart. I don't need to make things complicated so they think I'm smart. They'll think I know what I'm doing when we both see the results in their business. And that's the best win of all.
Right.
That's what they want. Transform the business, help grow, get results, right? So
That's what we want to do.
Yeah. Well, I'd say if anybody listening out there, if that sounds good to you, get a hold of us, talk to this lady, Sue Ginsburg, right here. Get a plan, consult, just kind of see what she's all about. I think you're going to be impressed, as we are. Again, just circling back, as soon as we started talking and we both identified that there's some kind of fit here, it's like, yeah, let's run with this on the team. And you've been an awesome part of our team really ever since. So happy to have you on for this 100th episode. Big milestone for us. I thought this was just a great fitting way for the three of us to kind of talk about that journey, and really, you wouldn't be part of this team, and our trajectory wouldn't be where it's going without this podcast, and then without you on it. So it just feels like it really does come full circle. That being said, let me jump into our 5-star review of the episode here. And this one here we got from Lisa Weber. This is from our Facebook page. Thanks for submitting that, Lisa. It says the awesome podcast, Local SEO Tactics by Intrix, is by far one of my top favorite podcasts. New episodes now. All right. So I saved this one because if you can tell from that, this has been sitting in our Facebook feed for a while. Lisa left us this review when we did re-engage, like we were saying earlier in the episode. And this is one of the types of feedback that we got once we did kind of re-engage it. There's exclamation marks pretty much on each sentence here that Lisa put on there too. And okay, it's just a few words of text, but we read that after we relaunch and it says, you know what? Yeah, we're doing the good thing. We're doing the right thing here. So hopefully we continue to elicit that response with all you out there listening and you're enjoying the show. Like Lisa, if you are, we'd love to get a review from you. Go on out to localseotactics.com, go down to the bottom, click the button for reviews, whether it be on Facebook or Google My Business or Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you're so inclined and have the ability. We'd love to get a review from you. If you do, we'll give you a shout out on the show eventually, like Lisa, a year later, maybe in some cases. But no, we love to get that feedback and we'd love to give you a shout out on the show. So check it out and leave us a review. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and sticking with us for 100 episodes. And we've got a lot more to come with Bob and Sue and myself and a cast of others that will be joining eventually here and there with interviews and snippets and things like that. So it's been fun. Thanks for coming on, Sue, for the interview. And Bob, as always, love talking with you and hanging out on the show too. So thanks for checking out, everybody. We'll catch you on the next episode.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.